Councillor Arthur. Any thoughts over lunch?
I'm happy with the definitions. It's more so the access to the information, as council people said, that the simple interplay between us and a district manager. Is it possible to have that not automatically delegated?
A standing delegation?
Yeah.
It's possible, but once this policy is enacted, it's still discretionary. Once you delegate that, once the CEO has the power to delegate, we can't further instruct that how he uses that delegation, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It becomes discretionary on that. So the CEO may elect to do that, but would not be bound by the policy to do so.
Explain that more, please, Mr. Mayor.
Or if you wanted a situation where there was that you wanted the CEO to permanently delegate something there, you can't prescribe that. You can just delegate the CEO the power, and then it's at the CEO's discretion once it's delegated.
But that's already in the existing policy that the request for advice goes back to our district managers.
Yeah. I wasn't saying about that. I was asked about a standing request to delegate. If we delegate it to the CEO, standing request to go down from there would have to be either spelled out in the policy, is what I'm saying, or left to the discretion. Once it's given to the CEO to delegate, then it becomes discretionary.
But we can still put it into the policy that we're looking at now back to our DMs.
If council.
That's what I mean, if council agrees.
As a new councillor, I have to admit I don't have enough experience to be able to say how much of a hindrance. I think without the easy access to our district managers, it's going to be a reasonable or considerable hindrance.
I see the biggest hindrance being the information.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Not
The advice I'm happy with to go through that, but it's that information about a project, or a member of the public may ask you something that sparks an interest, or a question about that or something else, or interrelated issues, and then the process around. And it may be as simple as, I may have overstepped the bounds and asked Paula earlier, had we made any progress with the street sweeping in Muttaburra? Because I was a little bit unclear as to what we'd sorted out last month. So under this guideline or policy, that wouldn't be allowed. Because it's information.
Well, that's under the Act.
Yeah.
That we don't get an ability to change that. Asking for information is not something that we can even debate. The CEO can put in place an arrangement if they like to.
Yeah,
that's what
but
I'm
we
saying,
can't prescribe that.
We can't ask for information from anybody other than the CEO, period. And that's not our call, that's the Act.
But the Act says a councillor may ask a local government employee to provide advice to assist the councillor to carry out his or her responsibilities under the Act.
That's right.
So representing the community is part of your responsibilities under the Act.
Mm.
So why couldn't Dan ask about the street sweeper in Muttaburra?
Well, because I determined that he'd be asking for information in that respect. So, which the Act clearly says has to go by the CEO.
But the Act also says clearly a councillor may ask a local government employee to provide advice to assist the council to carry out his or her responsibilities under the Act.
Mm-hmm. But a council is not a spokesperson for council, so if there's an issue that needs addressing in terms of feedback or a decision, well, that's got to come via the CEO or myself anyway. In terms of if there'd been a decision of council around something, like to purchase a street sweeper for Muttaburra and Aramac, the proper chain of communication for that's via the Mayor's office anyway.
And I think it again comes back to that distinction between advice and information. My interest was about information, and like as you said, it clearly says that to provide information has got to go through the CEO.
It was easier the other way around, where all they had to do was just, any staff member was just give you a factual piece of information. I think it probably needs to accept the nuances here, is probably what's the genesis of this draft change, where an officer was just providing a document or a thing that you're entitled to as a councillor anyway. That was, the further down you went, it didn't really matter because you're entitled to that information. They can't stop giving you information. But now that the interpretation is clearly, not the interpretation, the Act says information must come from the CEO or his delegate. It's advice that you're seeking now. It's whether there's the degree of comfort the further down the organisational chain with giving advice that there is with providing, here's a factual piece of information, you know, here's the usage report for the treatment plant, or here's the number of stays at the caravan park, or here's the, you know, like it's factual data that you're entitled to. And unfortunately, we've got to now farm all of those. In my opinion, unfortunately, all of those information requests now must go by the CEO, which does limit what we would interact.
And to the letter of the Act, it's going to seriously hamper just general conversation in and around meetings or...
Well, meetings are probably a bit different.
Oh,
because they're
I mean,
recording here.
at lunchtime or before a meeting or, yeah, outside of open session.
Yeah, I agree.
When it's just general conversation about, that go further than how are things going. Like, how's X, Y, Z going, or, yeah.
Cole?
You know, I'm sort of like Ben, and I know there's probably not much we can do about it, but I just feel it does tie our hands considerably. I was under the impression we were put here to, you know, by the people to do a job for them, but under the Act, really we can't do what we're supposed to be doing, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion.
We can still interact with the public and to a lesser extent council employees. It's just that when we want information or advice internally, it just has to be through a direct channel. It's just more traceable and single channeled than a simple question or a verbal request. Off the cuff.
Tom?
Mr Mayor, I'm a little bit lost with it. As I say, I'm a new councillor. Very similar to what Colin was saying. I feel as though our hands are tied reasonably. The wording of the different, some places I look at it and I think, yep, no, it's right, and then I go to the next line and no, it's wrong. And it would be good to be in our position to be able to talk to most people. I don't say give in, we're here to hunters and gatherers of information.
Through you, Mr Mayor, don't feel too bad, Councillor Gleeson. I've changed tack 3 times already in conversation.
Yeah, it's interpretive, definitely. Both the Act, there's lawyers that make their whole careers out of interpreting the same Act in 2 different ways. Don't worry about that. And neither of them necessarily are right.
All wrong.
Melinda?
Thank you,
Councillor
Mr Mayor. The information, I'm happy with the advice, you know, getting advice from where it says CEO and the Deputy CEO, but say the information, request for information. It says here, through the CEO or an employee delegated by him. Does that mean like the policy's fine, it's just so that after this policy's in place, it's still okay for Steve to delegate the DMs?
That's the point I was making at the start.
So
it's possible, but not
after the
certain.
policy, so we don't know for sure. So if the policy's handed down and then he can delegate that the acceptable people are also Paula, Jenny and Damien, that it doesn't, like, is that, so is there a way we can find out whether that's possible or?
I can tell you now it's possible, but we can't policy put it that way. So
Yeah.
the Act says that we have to provide information requests via the CEO. How the CEO chooses to execute that is entirely at the discretion of the CEO, which is hence the delegate. So the CEO of a really small council might act on all of them themselves. Whereas if you look at, for example, the Brisbane City Council or Toowoomba City Council, Regional Council, probably has a designated directorate officer that handles every one of those queries on his behalf or her behalf. So the style of the operations, but that's what I was just making very clear people are aware that it's not an automatic given that those things will happen if it's by power of delegation. And in the information, I'm sorry, but I don't think we can touch the information one. It's pretty clear, that one. It's the advice one and the level of people that advice can be sought from is about the only thing we can influence in the acceptable request guideline. Because the information is mandated to have come from the CEO, whereas advice can be sought from the employment of local government, provided it conforms with the acceptable request guideline, which is determining who that's applicable to.
So really what we've got in there now, under section 2, request for advice under the old policy, where it went back to the district managers. That's still possible.
Theoretically,
For advice,
Okay.
well, theoretically, yeah. It was guided as thinking that was who we could get information from, but yes, we can't get information from them anymore,
So when? Okay, but,
unless the CEO says we can.
okay, so I'm sitting, what can I come up with? I go to a local ambulance committee meeting and they've got a program where they're going to plant trees around Aramac and what have you. Can I go and sit with the DM if we leave that in there and talk about what happened at the previous meeting the night before with regards to using some of the $5,000 that we've got budgeted to plant trees in Aramac? Or can I not do that and I've got to call Steve?
What would you be doing in that meeting?
I'd be letting Paula know that this is what the LAC would like to do with these trees and what have you. We've already budgeted $5,000 in our budget. But as I see where we're going, I can't go and do that with Paula.
I don't know that you'd be able to do it under the existing policy. Because it's talking, could be construed as directing where you're going to plant trees.
No, this is a community organisation that have said, can we possibly do this with council? I just take that to Paula. It's in the budget and we can plant trees all over Aramac.
Yep. The problem is you're not a community organisation. You can't turn on council duties and turn off council duties. You're always a councillor.
I'm making Paula aware of what the LAC, their desire would be to do with these trees and where they'd like to plant.
Now that's a totally separate issue because this is.
But under this, what you're setting up, Brett, I can't do that. I've got to talk to each of you two.
No, this policy is not to do with that. This policy is to do with you making a decision as a councillor or requesting information on behalf of you as a councillor. So if you're providing feedback on behalf of the community groups, it's a totally different situation to seeking information or advice on how you should act as a councillor. This governs you getting advice from an officer of council on your role as a councillor. So you becoming the president of the local ambulance committee or the local football club or the local camp draft club and going to discuss with an officer an issue relevant to your event or a feedback is not asking for advice as a councillor on how you should execute your duties as a councillor. Like if Tom wants to talk to here in Barcaldine and say, right, he's hired the showgrounds for 3 days and he wants to know where he's got to leave the rubbish bins to get picked up from rubbish collection on a Sunday, he's not asking advice in executing his role as a councillor. Nothing to do with where the rubbish bins are getting left has anything to do with being a councillor of the BRC. But if he was to instruct Jenny, it would be a totally different deal. But providing feedback on, say, at the end of the weekend he goes in here on Monday and says, Jenny, we've got 3 leaking taps over there and or just letting you know feedback from the event. That's This policy deals with you getting information or advice on executing your role as a councillor. So representing a community group is not,
That's my role as a councillor?
well, you're not our designate on there, you're on there on your own capacity.
But it's part of my role as a councillor, to represent community groups.
Oh, we didn't appoint you to that. No councillor's been appointed to represent a community group. I represent 10 of them, but I'm not on there in an official capacity as a BRC, president of a football club and all sorts of things, but it's got nothing to do with my role as a councillor that I'm running those committees. I'd be still doing them if I had lost a month ago. And you're not getting that advice to help you as a councillor. You're providing your link to
Information or feedback to
between the
council.
community group and the DM. You're not instructing the DM, these trees have got to go here, and you've got to buy this type of tree. I mean, then you're crossing into the operational stuff, then no policy covers that. But if you're providing feedback from your community group, whether it's about budgeted items or an event that's being run, you can't divorce yourself from your role and delve into directing, but you can always, that sort of feedback's got nothing to do with your requests to make a decision around whether we're going to buy a piece of plant or something.
Okay, well, this other document, it says that you can talk to the DMs. All right, or well, seek advice or request advice from the DMs. So now what's it mean? What's the change by not having the DMs in there?
Well, for a start, you can't get information from them anymore because that was an oversight in the last document. That all had to come from the CEO. That's one thing it means. And if you want advice on how a situation had been dealt with previously, or, for example, a contractor issue that had been raised with you by a contractor, you go to the CEO or the deputy CEO with that.
So, sorry, you, Mr. Mayor, for an example, I'm a new councillor. I've had someone in town ask me a question. I approach Stephen the best way. Is it put forward in a resolution? Is it taken to a separate meeting?
Yep. I'll use a very express example. A contractor has contacted a council, like a vendor panel contractor, has contacted one of you 6 councillors to raise concerns about the execution of vendor panel and they're not getting jobs on. That councillor raised that with CEO for advice on how to proceed with it. The CEO has then taken the issue on, dealt with the person involved and reported back to the council on what the actions were. That's what this policy says, that the 2 people you would pass that style of information to are these 2 people here. That's what it means. But as far as representing the local football club, ambulance club, and you've got a list of concerns, there might be a bunch of stuff that needs doing at an event prior to or afterwards. That's not helping you execute your role as councillor. You're representing, you're the president of or the treasurer of a football club or a local ambulance committee. You're not there. I understand what you're saying, Councillor Peoples, but you're not, we haven't appointed you as the official council representative to the local ambulance committee. That then becomes an even greyer area, but you're just there as a preeminent member of your community who's been asked and has been a contributor to that group over a long period of time. If you were an official council spokesperson on a group, it would take a different tack. But just being a member of our community, we can't stop that. This is not governing how you would interact with a councillor in that request, in that situation. Well, okay, but that's been my interpretation of it. The 2 people who'll be charged with interpreting it, what would you suggest?
Well, I think, you've got to be very clear about what the guidelines are for, the situations that they're actually for, and I think, there's some examples that aren't covered by this because they're not requests. There are other, community interactions or whatever it might be. I think we've got to come back to the information is black and white. The Act says how information is dealt with. And I suppose my process is if I get requests for information, the first thing that I do is go to one of my senior officers or district managers and ask them to help provide the information or deal with the situation. So the number one thing I would do would normally be to delegate it to the other responsible person who's able to provide the most accurate and quickest turnaround on the information. In terms of the advice, I think it is challenging, and I suppose the document's written to try and protect councillors as well, because in your role, and I just said it at lunchtime, you've literally got everyone's watching you, you've got your necks on the line. I honestly believe you have to be very careful on who's giving you advice in terms of what actions you're going to take. So, look, I believe that it's right that it should only come to Brett or myself. If there's reason to delegate it, I've got no issues with delegating to the district managers or whoever else needs to be involved. But I think we've got to remember that first and foremost, the acceptable guideline requests are to protect councillors. It's not to try and hinder you, it's to try and alleviate major problems and further complaints and action being taken. So that's really my take on it, but I'm open to any other feedback, suggestions, how we can handle it.
Just on the specific situation of where, say, I represent the football club in Alpha and Tom represents the Camp Draft Club in Barcaldine.
Yep.
If we have issues around, not issues, but requests like for our respective clubs, like can we have access to the ground the day before to stock the bar?
Yep.
That's not something that needs to go by the CEO because that's not executing our role as a councillor.
Yep.
That's executing our role as a community group representative.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Isn't that a fine line too, but you want?
Well, I don't think so because this says it's a councillor acceptable requests guideline.
And
Now,
I think
if I wasn't a councillor in that situation, there's no difference. Councillor Gleeson.
Just, you used part of that example before, and we use it all the time with our different committees. Over at Maryborough there wasn't very long ago, I had a job supervisor and a grader driver. I wasn't a councillor then, but I'm now. And the same thing will happen next week or next month. They were working for me that day.
So that becomes different. If you're an employee of a contractor, then you need to seek written dispensation, which some councillors already have got.
I was there as a I don't know what you want to call me then, vice president of that club. I was vice president of that club and they were working for me. They weren't my employees, councillor and their council employees, but on that particular day, we pulled our shirts off and we went to work.
Yeah.
Next week when you go and have a camp draft in Alpha, you'll be, the council water truck will be there. And you'll be asking that council water truck, well not asking, more like telling that council water truck.
You do 3 days around there and 2 around here.
Yeah, you haven't got your shirt on.
No problem.
So there's ways and means around it.
Because
You've got to do the right thing.
Because you're not, well, in that case, you're giving, that's actually crossing into the operational area. So that but you're not giving an operational instruction as a councillor. If you were concerned about that, because that's a different bailiwick altogether, where you're interacting with a council employee in terms of operationally helping in their role, you probably would just protect yourself by saying to Stephen, look, there's going to be a council water truck there, is that okay? Yep, and he'll okay that. Because you're not acting as a councillor, sorry, I only misheard part of you, but say you were acting when you were driving for Degrade and you were giving a direction to a council staff member and seeking advice from an operator or a supervisor, then no, if you were to do that as a councillor, you would be like 2 other councillors here at the moment, you'd need written dispensation to do so. But where you're just acting, looking after a barrel racing day or you're not requesting information. So the legislation section 13.3F is clear and it says, for advice to assist the councillor to carry out his or her role as a councillor or for information that the local government has access to relating to the local government. So having a conversation about information for your respective not-for-profit charity or your community group is not assisting you to carry out your duties as a councillor. Because if you weren't on that group, you could still be you know what I mean? You don't need to be a councillor to be on that group or vice versa.
But you are.
What do you mean?
Well, you are a councillor, Sean, so
But it's not carrying out your duties as a councillor, is it? Is it part of the Local Government Act that you serve on the Aramac Local Ambulance Committee?
that's a matter of interpretation for, you know, for anyone that wants to have a look at this and see if the councillor has made a breach. And this is my problem with it, is that I think we are making a policy here that's right for our own back as councillors, you know, because we can't talk to anyone. And we live in outback Australia, not in China or somewhere. We can't talk to anyone.
About what?
Well, about anything, Sean. I can't talk to Paula now about what we're going to do on Anzac Day and what we're going to do on Australia Day. Or, you know, I've got to ring Stephen or Brett to ask them, can I talk to Paula? And I think that's rubbish.
Well, if you're seeking information, that's always going to be the case.
I'm seeking how we're going to do Anzac Day. When do you want me to, you know, what am I going to say here? When am I going to speak? Do you want me to be the MC? That's all I'm doing. So I've got to ring Brett or Stephen to get information about how we're going to run the hour service on Anzac Day.
I wish I could change the Act on how you seek
Well,
information.
I think you're going too far with the Act, Mr Mayor, because I think that the Act says that you can ask employees for advice.
Advice, but
Yep.
your phrase just 30 seconds ago was information. You asked for information on whether you're going to be doing this or that. The Act is very clear on information. It says it's got to go by the CEO.
Yeah, but that was a slip of the tongue by myself, as you know, but when you're chasing advice or information, and I'll use the word information again, which it is, the information that you're talking about with Stephen is chasing something that's probably high senior or some sort of document that we're chasing. When we're talking about information about how we're going to do Anzac Day the next day or next week, it's still information.
True, but the Act doesn't define information as differing in levels of importance. It's not like there's 3 levels of importance of information. You can get access to each level from a different officer.
No, but it says you can get advice.
Yeah, that's
And,
right.
and you know, it depends how you interpret advice.
Well,
This document that we're going to...
Councillor Peoples, it doesn't depend on how I interpret advice. It depends on the definition that this council places on advice. So if you want to propose an alternative, that's your
Well-
prerogative.
Well, I asked before, can we have another day on this where we sit around as councillors?
I'd sooner that it be adopted today because the policy that we have in place is in breach of the Act.
Oh, you go ahead with what you want to do then, Mr. Mayor.
So you can water down the definition of advice, or you can change the level of who you seek that advice from. So the definition of advice, if that's not reflective enough of what it should be, in terms of seeking advice about running events, for example, as you've outlined.
Well, the old document went far further than what just the 2 officers sitting over there with you. We had the chief engineer and the 3 district managers, and I'd go at least that far. Just so that we
That's
can...
your prerogative to propose it.
Well, I'm proposing it.
And are you wanting to amend the definition? Because that governs what they can tell you.
Are we?
Bear in mind, you can't ask them for information, but if you want advice, are you happy with that definition of advice? Because we've said at the outset that the definitions have been defined by the policy writer. There's no definition in the Act for either, in either pieces of legislation. So, of course, if you want to let that definition sit for the time being and amend other elements of it and then amend that definition down the track, policies can be amended at future days. There's no reason that you can't. Councillors, then generally the feeling of asking for advice,
What's the advice?
generally the feeling of lowering the level of advice.
I'm, after the lengthy conversation that we've just had, I'm of the opinion that it will be hard, workability will be hard, but at the moment, that's the best fit that we can go with. Those definitions, and as you said, we are restricted by the Act with respect to information. The advice, and again, the advice is only an opinion from the officer that we ask. What we decide to do with that opinion or that advice is up to us. So at this stage, I'm happy with that as it sits. I think it will be difficult to adapt to, but I'm happy for that to, I'm happy for the other councillors to.
Right, councillor Rogers?
I'm happy to go with it as it sits. Like, as you say, we can amend it in the future if it's unworkable or if we feel that it's unworkable. Just because we're in breach at the moment of the Act, so.
Well, our policy doesn't reflect the intent, I should rephrase that. Our policy does not match what the Act says we should do. I don't know if to use the phrase in breach probably means that we could be risking fines or words to that effect, but effectively by asking for information of anyone other than the CEO without the express delegation is outside the parameters of the Act.
Yeah.
So we need to tidy that up for information,
So-
definitely for information. Advice is a more grey area, but information is black and white.
Yeah, so I'm happy with that as it is, and then, you know, if we feel that it's unworkable, like you said, we can amend this any time in the future, or is there a time limit we have to?
No, you can present policies to any meetings. Unless they are policies that need to go to the JCC because they've got to have a chance to form opinion. Councillor Hanson?
I'm sort of inclined to agree with Councillor Rogers and Arthur with this. We give it a try, if it doesn't work, but we can always change it down the track.
Councillor Gleeson?
I feel as though that the CEO and Brett have obviously done a lot of homework on this, and I think I'll agree. We'll try it. We can't change the Act, so try it, and if we find that there's a problem down the track, we'll look back at it, adopting some small areas. So I'm happy to go with it.
So, Mr Mayor, can I ask councillors then, are they happy to go back down to the district managers, or is that they saying just to go with the CEO and the deputy CEO?
I'll go back along the line in a minute, but I've interpreted that they're happy with the policy as it's presented. Does anyone nods? Councillor Plum, your thoughts?
I'm happy to leave it the way it is. When Councillor People speaks of going to Paula about Anzac Day, Angela's normally in charge of Anzac Day, so by going to Paula, and if Angela hasn't updated Paula on what's going on, then you really should come back to the CEO or the deputy CEO to get the information straight from there, so it's organised, and then go through to Angela.
I see your point, councillor. I think realistically, in the real world application of that, the CEO will very quickly delegate that, and the officer, whoever it is, whether it be locally or in Alfred, usually comes out of the office there, it'll be managed by the office directly with the councillor involved on delegation. So
Yeah.
I can't imagine the CEO or the deputy CEO are going to handle the individual arrangements for 5 respective Anzac Day services.
No, but I'm just saying, like, there's another officer involved in this, so if you went to the top of the chain and then worked down, it'd be a lot easier.
Councillor, you proposed to amend that policy, which was the first resolution I had. Would you like to proceed with that and see whether you have a seconder?
To amend it to go back down to our DMs?
So amend councillors generally from the Chief Executive Officer, Deputy Chief Executive Officer, whoever you want in there with them.
Yep.
So I'll give you that courtesy. You were the first to propose that. So I'm feeling that that resolution probably won't pass, but you indicated the proposal first, so would you like to do that?
Yes, I'd like to move an amendment, Mr Mayor, that we...
Well, it won't be an amendment because there is no resolution, so you'll move
I'll move...
that the amended policy include those
Okay.
officers.
All right. I'll move that the amended policy as per the previous policy include the chief engineer, the district managers from Alpha, Jericho, Aramac, Marlborough.
Excuse me, sorry. Hayley, can we go to the end of guidelines, please? Put, with the addition of the following officers section 2A for councillors, chief engineer and district managers, just for section 2A, and then councillors generally. Delete and, just in councillors generally. That references the section where we're inserting those 4 officers. That reflects it, councillor.
Yeah.
Yeah, move Councillor Peoples, could I have a seconder? Councillor Gleeson. Those, we'll open it for formal debate, but I can foreshadow the need for a second resolution. So, Councillor, do you want to speak for your motion?
No, I think we've said enough, Mr Mayor, yep.
Thank you, Councillor. There being no need to speak for it than against, so can I put it to the vote? Those in favour of that resolution? Against? Vote is lost. 2-5. Councillors wish to propose an alternative.
Can we accept the unamended policy as is?
Councillor Hanson is moving that the policy be accepted as presented.
That'd be councillor Arthur.
Sorry, Councillor Arthur. I've nearly made mistakes all day on that. I've just had to pause, so you've taught me after lunch. Seconder, Councillor Hanson. Those in favour? Against?
I'm in favour of both.
I'll recall the vote, please. 4 times today I've had to recall votes. I've never seen it done. I recall the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed? 6-1. Councillor Peoples, would you like to be recorded? And
Yes, please.
And would you like to be recorded for the previous resolution?
Yes, please.
Sorry, you didn't vote against the last one, sorry.
No, just this one, yep, sorry.
But you can call, it's nearly too late for you to call for division though. I've moved on with one.
On this one here?
Not for this one, it's not, no.
No, that's all right, leave it.
Division's pretty easy on that one, 6-1. Councillors 3, 4, 12. I cede the chair to the Deputy Mayor. Let's go to Bamber's not.
So item 3.4.12, the proposal for changing Barcaldine Regional Council's external boundary with neighbouring councils. So it's ready for the Minister of Local Government. The officer's recommendation is that council writes to the Minister requesting a change the external boundary with neighbouring councils. Is there any discussion about this? Does anyone have any questions?
Through you, was it Ms. Deputy Mayor or through the Deputy Mayor? What effect does that have on rates and or roads? Was it, like, is that, do we end up with additional road network? And how does the separation of rates if a property falls into a
Madam Deputy Mayor.
Madam, sorry.
Madam Deputy Mayor or Deputy Mayor. So Councillor Arthur, this has been probably a 2-year project that we've been working on. In terms of rates, it's minimal change because we're gaining and losing properties. And it will depend on what the Change Commissioner decides as well.
Yeah, I suppose.
Whether they allow all the properties to change, or if some don't change, then that will affect us. In terms of roads, the biggest change will be the Alpha Clermont Road. We would gain, I don't know how far it is, Rick, but extra road on the Alpha Clermont Road past the Baliendo. So that would give us more work
Yeah.
and more main roads funding, which is a good thing for that area. We may get more bitumen. And those people were adamant that they wanted to come back to, or they wanted to be in Barkey Regional Council.
Yeah, I did see that, that the vast majority were before coming into the council.
The other, say in the western side down the Drummond Range, we've got, so what's happened on that boundary, the council boundary is the top of the range, so it's like this all the way down, whereas all the properties have got straight lines. So what we're saying, we want the council boundary to be on the straight lines of the property boundaries. So there's no roads there, no council roads, it's just straightening the boundaries so that those properties aren't paying rates in two shires. Basically they're paying most of their rates to us, and then they get a small bill from Central Highlands. There's two up on the Clermont, the northeast corner. We don't even give them an access road. Their road comes from Clermont, yet they pay rates in Barkey Regional Council. So, and I think the same as Lakeland, there's one of their blocks is in our area. We don't have a road there, but their access road is from Clermont as well. The others on Torrance Creek Road, well, that's a main roads road. There's one near Muttaburra, just south of Muttaburra. They're ones that said they didn't want to change. There's actually two people. There's the Gullah, north of Alpha, and her property is half Isaac, half Barkey, and she has an access road to Clermont and access road to Alpha. And so her argument is, if I go with either council, the other council will take my road away. So she wants to pay rates both ways, so she gets two roads to a property, which is fair enough, but that doesn't help this, the cause of this. So yeah, there's give and take, but in terms of TMR funding, I think
there's a potential win
better off. There's probably that bit of road would come from, what would that be, Mackay District or to Central West. So it could potentially be more funding because of the Baliendo. I don't know how the main roads funding works. There's also properties on the Blackall Jericho Road. One wants to come to Barkey, one wants to go to Blackall. So we probably gain a bit of road on the Narberthon Road, back off Blackall. But part of I'm not sure the Blackall Jericho Road, how that's affected.
But realistically, negligible real change. It's not as if we're losing 100 kilometres or gaining 100 kilometres. That's right.
There are, so the maps that I put in the can, it identifies a wider class of properties. So this project is parcels of land that are split between two shires. But DNR's now identified, properties that are made up, so 3 or 4 parcels of land, half in Barkey, half in somewhere else. So whether that's another project. This one is strictly about, because the Local Government Act says that shire boundaries should not dissect a parcel of land. So that's what we're rectifying with this.
Thank you.
And the mayor's out of the room because Surbiton is, the boundary is the Valiendo River. It's the same as the Range, so the boundary follows the river, and he's got a straight boundary. So there's a little pocket of his property goes into Isaac. And by doing that, he'd be wholly within Parky Regional Council.
Not shifting him into Isaac.
Do you want me to try? I didn't think of that one. No, we actually, that is,
Don't do that.
well, no, I won't. So we have had one boundary change that I've been on council, and that involved someone wanting to stand for council and getting their property changed so that they could do that. But it does raise the point that we have written to all 24 property landholders and asked them which way they wanted to go.
Thanks, Brett. Councillor People?
So, very little change in rates, mate, it's not going to affect anything there for us, just roughly.
I have done the calculations. Is it $10,000 or, yeah, so.
I'll move we go with the recommendation, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Have we got a second of the Councillor Hanson? All those in favour? Motion is
I still think we need to get those still think we need to get those restaurant puzzle things.
Okay, right, so we don't need to move at all.
Well, we'll keep an eye on it. If you think there's anything that warrants it, as I say, we're still at stand. I'd lean forward anyway, so we can stand up very quickly if required. Okay. Excellent, thanks very much. No worries, see you. In good news, officers, we won't be standing up the LDCC in the next 12 hours anyway. The inspector has said that at this stage we have no need to be concerned. As we open up on 3413, COVID facilities and caravan and camping, so it was an opportune phone call because. Right. What are we going to do, councillors? So, okay, while you are considering anything you want to say, my consultation on this is probably not as broad as our district managers, and I give them fair warning that I will possibly seek comment from them shortly on this. But in travelling, by and large, there's a difference on a town by town basis to this. I couldn't say there is a uniform acceptance or rejection across our 5 towns. There's initial feedback that I've had from places to the north is a bit of hesitancy. To the east is open acceptance, but you're talking a massive difference in distance there. Like a lot of the people in our east have been travelling within the restrictions to places like Emerald anyway to undertake business. So they're interacting to a high degree. They're very mobile. Kids are at boarding school down that way. Locally here, following meetings that we held regionally, but with respect to Barcaldine, the meeting was held with businesses would indicate a very high degree of ready to go back to work. Probably partially needs driven, and good thing there's not too many more of them in the room, or we wouldn't have a quorum. But I think the thing there's a couple of mitigating circumstances here that probably need to be considered. One is the fact that the Queensland border is still closed. Two, that it's actually been okay to camp now for a fortnight, provided you aren't exceeding the distance from your normal place of origin. And there was a third point. That there's a potential, even when the borders do open, or even now, that carabiners will come. They're going to be here somewhere. Do we want them in controlled, regulated environments where we sort of have got some idea where they've been and what they're doing, or do we want to push them out of our towns to camp in road reserves and so forth, theoretically minimising our exposure? You'll note that the recommendation splits if I just deal with A, B separately to C. The three showgrounds in Barcaldine, the two showgrounds in Barcaldine, Jericho and the rec ground in Muttaburra have been excluded from an immediate opening and referred to a needs basis as determined by the CEO. Now, here in Barcaldine, that's in deference to the fact that the local commercial caravan parks have copped a big whack. And by leaving our facility shut, we're inviting or providing a more equal or even basis for the commercial operators to get a go. In Muttaburra, in Jericho, it's to encourage use of the Freedom Park and minimise the need for staff to be clearing or cleaning facilities. And I'll jump in here, and Paula, is that also the reason for the Muttaburra Recreation Ground?
Yeah, the Muttaburra Recreation Ground's usually only used for overflow.
Anyway, okay. So that's to provide some context around it. Now, there has been historical issues counter to the view of keeping the Barcaldine Showground shut. There are other individuals and people within this community that would like it to be the first port of call for every tourist. It's a very long legacy issue around that. I think we'll deal with that on a more permanent basis when we don't have the hangover necessarily of COVID. But I think that now it's an appropriate stimulus measure for council to provide to those commercial parks here that, look, it could actually in itself stop council having to become financially dependent on council for some form of relief if we can funnel 100% of the traffic through those locations first. So that's the background. Can somebody just enlighten me? I must have overlooked the difference between the 4 in item A and Aramac. The difference between the 1st of June and the 13th of June for the Freedom Park there.
Mr Mayor, that's because of the roadworks that are being conducted into Aramac
They
Freedom
can't
Park.
access it, okay. And that's why Aramac Caravan Park is open, okay, I understand. Because there's no other alternative. So do we have a count of views to this, councillors, or concerns about this that you'd like to raise? I'm not asking for a resolution yet, I'm just asking for discussion. Councillor Gleeson.
You may have just said it, but I'm not sure. Barcaldine, Mr Mayor, Barcaldine, why isn't the Barcaldine caravan parks the two caravan parks in the list for the first 4 on the 1st of June?
Because they're already open, they control them. These are only for ones that we own.
Oh, sorry.
Council.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's actually 3 others here and they're all open.
Alpha's open too, sorry.
No, 3 in Barcaldine.
Yeah, there's 3 here, but Alpha's open too.
And Alpha's open as well. So the 4 commercial van parks are now all open.
Yep. I totally, while I'm speaking, I totally agree to leave the showgrounds for another week or 2, like you have. I agree with that idea.
Well, they've been left for longer than a week or two. They've been left till, hopefully they're not needed because the other parks are full. Well, hopefully in a way they are needed. It'd be great if we got to where they were needed. They could theoretically stay shut for the remainder of the winter. Now, this does not apply to community groups if the situations are, you know, they're not, it's not shut. For example, the rec ground in Muttaburra is not shut if the restrictions were eased to the point that a camp draft could be held there. That's a community group running an event. This is solely relevant to caravan and camping facilities for tourists. Community events are exempt.
Mr Mayor, I just wanted to say too, just for information, on the Red Bank facility that we've got at Jericho, that's basically for fully self-contained caravanners. So they're not actually relying on any showers or anything there with the cleaning procedures. And they can sort of fit anywhere up to around 50 odd vans through there, 50 or 60 vans. Whereas the showgrounds, as an overflow in Jericho there, we're sort of reliable then to do a cleaning of 2 toilet and shower facilities there as well. So that's a bit of the reasoning with that one there as well, so.
Councillors, is there a contrary proposal or would somebody like to move the recommendation? Councillor, contrary proposals or we're moving? Okay, Councillor Plum.
And this is contingent on a COVID safety for those parks as well, isn't it?
Yeah, they're a very simple generic
Yeah,
document.
yeah.
I'd imagine officers already have that in here. Well, actually, sorry, I indicated I was coming to officers. Officers, do you have any comments? Jenny Bark-Alden, any comments that would be relevant to councillors here?
To Mr Mayor, no, I agree with the Bark-Alden one remaining closed because unfortunately the policy as it stands says that it's an overflow park, but
It's not the way it's been used.
not the way it's been used. And we wouldn't be being fair to the private caravan park owners to open the gates to that facility, so.
Thanks, Jenny. Paula, any further comments for Aramac Muttaburra?
Just that my 2 communities are fairly divided, I guess. There's fors and against. The only thing that we haven't got real strict guidelines on is the cleaning. So if we open up our caravan parks, how often do they have to be cleaned? There's no real, you know, do we have to go in every time someone has a shower, or there's no real cleaning regime there yet, so.
I think, no, there's probably policies or there's probably documents out there that tell you how you need to clean it, but not the frequency.
Yeah.
Would that be right, officers? That's still yet to be determined.
Mr Mayor, Damien went to the caravan park in Alpha and got a checklist that they use, but it's not an official, there's no official regime that you have to follow. However, there is the WorkSafe Australia has got guidelines on cleaning, and even there, it's a workplace health and safety requirement, which is a risk, basically it's a risk assessment anyway. You decide what the level is, the level of risk is.
So back onto the initial concern, obviously the operational issues, I'm sure confident the senior officers will discuss that and work that out, but you're right, Paul, I've detected the same thing. Even the business people who are desperate for them to return are hesitant to state that publicly because they are aware of, I hesitate to use the word animosity, but it's almost to that level, the feeling, isn't it? Damien, Alpha, Jericho more relevantly.
Yeah, I was just going to say also, I met with the Alpha Caravan Park people there the other day. They're actually got no bookings at all at the moment. So that just shows you how much sort of travel around there as well. So with caravanners, I know in Alpha we don't use the showgrounds there, so it's not an issue. The Jericho ones would be the same thing, with trying to keep them closed, only because of that cleaning side of it there, so.
So councillors, we had a resolution planned here by Plum and Hanson. Any further questions for officers or comments on this?
Just a comment, I was originally just a fan of the idea of caravanners coming to a bigger centre, whether it be, and it probably only caters for those coming from the south or the east, as in coming to Bark-Alden or Alpha. And until such time as, I don't know, whether they get a COVID test, it's more so to appease the smaller community, so that once they've got that it's a lot easier for them to maybe travel within the communities, and maybe there's the chance that we can say, once you've got to Barkey Regions, stay for 2 or 3 weeks, or stay for a month, or go to each town for a week. And whether that goes any way to allay any fears from the smaller communities, from people just lobbing up straight into Jericho or Muttaburra, because they're smaller, their health services are smaller. I think Barcaldine has a better capacity to, I guess, deal with whether it be that testing or the unfortunate incident that we get a positive, and then encourage them to travel extensively within our region relatively safely.
Sorry, I'm just going to press pause because I don't want to try and listen to two of you at once. You make very relevant points, but the CEO's just alerted me to something. I'm not adjourning, I'm just holding, sorry. Could you take that COVID?
No, well, that's what I mean. I'm not sure whether our COVID plan can be that prescriptive to say, or I guess we can encourage to have that COVID safe app.
When you're talking about, could you encourage?
We encourage you to, once locating into the shower, I don't know how much a COVID test is.
Some caravans have been coming through with the certificates.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's an opportunity, because there seems to be a reasonable amount that lob up in Barkey or Muttaburra or Aramis for a month or 6 weeks at a time anyway, so they're happy just to get here, pull up times, kick out the caravan, lay back, maybe go and do a day trip.
Are you talking about on the cemetery? Because that's where they'll go.
Well, that's the issue, unless we have somewhere for them to go, they will basically just free park. Well, they'll do that as well, but.
Excuse me, councillor, my apologies, and I really do apologise, councillor Hanson. I used to try and listen to two people at once, but when it was as serious as both ears were. Both ears were very serious conversations, so now I'm going to say, actually, you've already stated it, so effectively, you are supporting the resolution, or would you?
Yes, I'm supporting the resolution. I was just wondering, within the COVID safe plan, can we suggest or be as prescriptive as to have the COVID safe app? Can we be that prescriptive with our
so what?
safe plan?
Okay, just let me paraphrase your officers, but I believe that there's traceability. You have to fill out a form to say where you've come from, or as such, separate to even having the app. So the commercial parks definitely are. And is there a possibility of that being logged through the Freedom, booking of the Freedom Parks? In officers from nods from two officers. So I think that's factored into the booking element of it. So that and to be honest, councillor, that's why I support reopening the facilities, because if there is somebody that falls sick, by the time they are diagnosed, they could well be in Mount Isa, and I'd like to know that they were in the Aramac or Muttaburra or wherever caravan park 3 weeks prior or 2 weeks prior, like at least then we could get some warning into our communities about, and also we've got a cleaning regime in our toilets, whereas if the facilities are closed, we mightn't have that same cleaning, but the tourists could still pull up and use them when they're driving through anyway. So I think I'm really cognizant of the issues that District Manager Muttaburra Aramac's put forward here about community concern. My judgment, be that what it may, is that the best way to address their concerns is to actually regulate the visitation through the access to our parks. We can facilitate a better cleaning regime. We've got heightened awareness of who's here, where they've come from. If we don't close it and they still transit anyway, we're substantially behind the 8 ball on that knowledge. So to me, I hear them and I feel their concern, and it's real fear in some people's cases, especially elderly people. But I think our best method of protecting them is to actually funnel them into these facilities to use. And protecting them long term is the economic viability of the small businesses that are very hinged year on year out in these facilities. So it's a very difficult one for me personally, but I think
I'm strong in personal opinion that we need to open them for the exact reason that I think some people in our community may feel shutting them would be a good idea. So we have the resolution by councillors Plum and Hanson as is presented. Does anyone wish to speak? Sorry, Paula.
Can I just say one more thing?
Certainly.
Maybe if we just kept it at the Freedom Parks, because with the online booking, we can trace them at the moment, but it'll be easy to implement if we have to. For the caravan parks, they come into our offices, we can get them to do a form quite easily. But, yeah, I don't know.
So you're suggesting removing item 3 there, remove the caravan park in Aramac?
Yeah, caravan parks in Aramac and Muttaburra, and just leave it with 3B as well, the 3 Freedom Parks, maybe. I don't know. Just for traceability, it's easy at the moment because when you book the Freedom Park, you have to do that online and get all the information there.
Mm-hmm.
At Muttaburra, yeah, they'll be going into the office there. Aramac, they'll come into the office. So I guess it's either or, but
Can we put the caravan parks on the same booking system?
Officers, I'm open to, we as council are open to your advice, Mr.
Wouldn't this be part of the COVID safe plan, having to know the details of every person that comes into?
I think that's maybe the reason the district manager's mentioning it. It's a lot easier to get that information through our caravan park system because it's booked, whereas through our Freedom Park system, whereas the caravan's a little bit more clunky currently. But is there a scope to digitalise that as well?
yes.
And to you, Mr Mayor, for our Barkwood and Showground, because it's not a booking system, we can't take bookings for that. That just isn't possible because they don't come to the office. It's up to our cleaners or our showground caretaker who collect those people. So I think that's a big ask on them to do another form because it's something that they slip in as part of their daily duties. It's not something, so we can't take bookings for our park and that's to do with the campaign policy, so.
I'm just going to say, Mr Mayor, too, Jericho's the same as well for that. There's no
The
actual.
showgrounds,
The
yeah.
showgrounds, yeah, there's no actual policing on the.
Paula, have you got any further advice you'd like to share there with us?
No, we were just talking about how we could go ahead with that, but yeah, and then we do have the problem too with the donation box, which we can take away quite easily. You know, people just drop the money in and then off they go. So we've got no traceability of those sort of people either. But that would be just like camping on the side of the road as well, I suppose. We're whole district.
So I'll look to you again for advice. Paula, are you suggesting that now it might be easy enough to leave the caravan park there because you can digitalise it, or do you think it, in your advice, may be better to remove that and just leave with the Freedom Park on the 13th of June when the works are done?
I'd be happier to just go with the Freedom Parks, but it's up to
Councillors, the resolution has been moved, but I'm very grateful for the officers' detailed reports here.
I'm happy to default to the position of the
My
district
personal
manager.
position is to back our officers 100%. Not that Paula's report lists, it's the deputy CEOs, but I'm comfortable either or. If the advice is that we leave the caravan park out for the time being, I'm comfortable either way.
I'm willing to go with Paula's amendment on it.
Councillor Plum, is your resolution?
What are we going to do about Aramac then?
So it'll open on the 13th of June with the Freedom Park. So item B in that same resolution. It's the only reason it's not opening on the 1st is the roadworks. And then Aramac Caravan Park goes down to C, is that correct?
Yeah.
And then it can be, because that then means it can be used on a needs basis, and it could be used effective immediately if required, and then we can funnel people, but that's at your discretion then, Stephen, how you work that out.
I think once we let a few in to see what the community's feel is, and if they're more accepting and it's fine, then we can probably open the caravan parks if the community feels safe, I guess.
Can we also put in there that the Aramac Freedom Park will be open due to roadworks or due to something like that, so.
So it says the 13th of June. Are we certain, Rick, that it'll be ready by the 13th of June, or should we put subject to construction deadlines?
I would put something about construction deadlines, Mr Mayor.
Opens Aramac Freedom
Mr
Park.
Mayor, can I just suggest that we just drop it down to C and not have it B?
No, because I think it should open immediately, as it shouldn't necessarily be on a needs basis. It should
As
open
soon as
immediately as able to. So opens Aramac Freedom Park with a COVID safe plan upon construction completion. Access road construction completion, is that all that we're waiting on? Access road, or is there some other works that need to be undertaken?
There's some fencing as well, Mr Mayor,
So
which
let's
goes
just
with
say-
the same thing.
Well, just upon construction completion. Are you happy with that, Councillor Plum?
Yeah.
And I also think at the very opening of this, we need to put an insertion there, councillors, that council, comma, in line with the easing of state government restrictions. Because we've stayed in step with them, so this is not council acting unilaterally, like the state government has said it's okay to use, go camping, multi-night stays in the outback. So, of restrictions. Councillors, are you happy with those two amendments? Go to the vote, all in favour? Against? Carried. 5-0. 3414. Councillors are very grateful to our officers there for the work that they've put into compiling that list and the free and frank advice that was provided to us. Detailed advice, thank you, officers. Ultimately, it's our decision, but we are guided by your expertise. Who's out? 14. We lose most of you, I reckon. Arthur, you're gone. See ya.
Peoples is already out, Rogers is already out.
Mr Mayor, I don't think I declared this one originally because I was of the opinion that we were moving this to the budget.
We are, but we're still going to receive it.
Okay.
Unless I do just defer the whole thing. I was going to do was probably possibly need for discussion on some of it today, but
Because to clarify, my employers don't supply plant, but we may be a backstop if council doesn't have plant.
I think that,
I'll just walk when it comes to
yeah.
You don't need it. You don't have to do it. Your suppliers, you don't supply machinery,
Yeah, but if,
not new machinery.
Devil's
No,
advocate,
they do
if I
work.
decide to get rid of all the council's graders,
then Ripcord gets all the work.
Yeah.
yeah, that's, yeah. Sorry, my apologies, I thought this was being deferred to.
So it's going to be, I'm going to move to defer it, and council, we're going to defer it and discuss it as part of the budget. Can somebody bring other staff, councillors back in, because this means that they don't have that MPI. Actually, I've still got a quorum, haven't I?
Yeah.
Well, let's go to the, declare the MPIs, leave the room, I'll move to defer it, then you can come back in. Who have I got to get back? Nobody? Where's Cole gone? This is what happens, see, no wonder you're worried about the state of the chamber. You went missing in action 2 hours ago. So yes, you give me 2 minutes to defer it.
Yeah.
You'll leave the room
Okay.
to join the two that are already
Will
out
we
there.
have to amend my MPIs though?
Yeah, no, because you,
Do we have to suspend standing orders that need to then?
councillor, you won't need to suspend standing orders, you can just declare an interest now under section 170, whatever it is.
175B.
It's been written up there for you. Councillor Arthur declared an interest under 175B.
I
Due to his
declare
employment.
material personal interest as defined by Local Government Act 2019, blah, blah, blah. Oh, sorry, not blah, blah, blah. I stand to gain a benefit depending on the outcome of council's consideration of this matter. I stand to gain a benefit or suffer a loss because my employer, Michael Horton Transport, may be a supplier of plant or services. I'll be dealing with this declared material personal interest by leaving the matter is discussed and voted on.
Councillors, as has been foreshadowed with you, this has budgetary implications that require serious consideration in our budget. I commend officers for the development of a comprehensive 10-year plant replacement program. Not very many 10-year plans that actually carry the credibility that, in my opinion, this does. So I thank them for that. However, given, as I said, the budgetary implications and the need to view items within this plan in light of forecast budget years, can I please move, Hayley, that Council defers this report to the budget meeting? Moved Councillor Dillon, seconder. Councillor Gleeson. Those in favour? Carried 4-0. We're in McKinley, the size of these votes, 4-0. Right, back in they come. Thank you, Jenny. Councillor Hanson, can you remind me that you and I, Stephen, need to have a talk afterwards? Just a note on maybe, otherwise I'll forget it.
Yeah.
For the benefit of those councillors who are out of the room, the last resolution, item 3414, though you have declared a MPI end, councillors present deferred the consideration and receival of that report to the budget meeting to align the conversations in that specific report with budget considerations. And for the benefit of those councillors who were also absent for item 3413, the Chair, I commended the officers for the work in developing the proposal and for their extremely positive and proactive contribution to the debate. It was extremely impressive. So that's for the benefit of councillors who weren't privy to that debate. 351, financial report. Can I please have somebody move that we receive the report? Move to Plum, second and Hanson. Those in favour, carried 7-0. Questions or comments, please? I have one question before we go. On page 54, rate arrears as a percentage of the levy has skyrocketed to 41.5%. Is that a technical thing because of the rate cycle or the fact that perhaps the date for rate due was amended and the system didn't reflect it?
Mr Mayor, that's just because it's part of the rate cycle, so that at this time of year when the rates are outstanding, that reflects the amount that's outstanding. But
so is that technically a rate arrear? No one's an arrear in their rates, are they, until such point as they haven't paid on the payment day, are they?
Well, they're owing, rates owing.
I would agree, but just on the presentation it says arrears, so I looked at that thinking that there was 41.5% as a percentage of our levy with people in arrears on the rates. They're not, are they? They just haven't paid because the due date's not until the 26th of June. I'll just clarify that for people who might look at that graph and be alarmed. It's just cyclical, and it just means that people haven't, rates are not yet due, so therefore they're still outstanding. Thank you, Brett. Questions? Okay. Item 361, the workshop. Were people still catching up, or have they read prior to today and are happy with the findings? I won't guillotine you. If you want more time, I'll hold. Going. We're going to talk finance all afternoon, I guess, so in the budget. Yes, I'm looking at my watch too, because other people's. 361, goal 1, just before everyone starts moving, who's back? So it's the head of works, construction program. It's not goal 1 really, it is, yeah, is it or not?
Yeah, it's.
Just not listed there. Goal 1, construction program, head of works programs listed. Did anyone, there's no MPIs in that. Anyone have any questions for Rick on that?
Councillor Rogers declared 1, 3 and 5.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's fine.
There you go. I'll come back in a minute. Any questions on, how are we going, Rick, with DTMR stuff, all good, on schedule?
Yes, although we're trying to seal today in Cole on the Bark Aramac Road, so we started sealing at about 11:30. We're on and off, struggling to get pavement temperature. So it may not get finished today, might finish it off tomorrow or another day. Yeah, Aramac Airport we went to seal last week and went to Cole, so they're back again tomorrow. Put the top coat on him. So apart from dealing with the cold weather, a little bit of wet weather last week, we're pretty much on schedule.
Very good. Goal 2. 1 can come back and 2 go.
But just when she's coming back in.
Pardon? Right. We're back for economy, tourism, freedom of choice parks. Anything to report or any questions first? I'll go to anything to report there, Rick. We just briefly talked about completion, what dates there? Be determined by contractors.
Yeah, in weather, hopefully we get some wet winter. So, yeah, it's going on fine.
There'll be sealing, yeah, I can talk about this, there'll be sealing works involved in that as well, is there? And that's undertaken by contractors?
Yes.
So the whole project is contract? And they'll be limited by the same things we are, over temperature and so on?
Yes.
Is that a supervised tender, or are they doing that, are they providing supervision for that as well, or have you got to provide oversight yourself?
We're providing oversight, so one of my engineers is looking after it.
Okay, yes, he's talking here. Questions, councillors, on freedom of choice parks, or any other goal 2 economy, but that's the only thing listed in this report? There being none, thank you, councillor Rogers. Goal 3. Councillor Gleeson, did you determine in goals 3, 1 and 2 because of your work on the Muttaburra Aramac Road for a contractor that you had an MPI? Was that correct or not?
I did not.
I was there.
Should I have not.
Well, it's your determination, councillor. I'm nearly exhausted on advice. I mean, the report is there that it's signage to be completed. I can't imagine that you're going to do anything. It's just information. So you choose, councillor. No.
I don't believe I have to.
All right, thank you. Appreciate a confident answer. Any questions on any of this rural flood damage here? Rick, anything that's not written there that you need to identify?
The flood damage has slowed down because of the COVID stuff. So we've lost some productivity. We've put in for extensions of time with QRA because of that. The other complicating factor is the 2020 event, which held us up for a couple of months because we were doing the emergency repairs on it. So we're just readjusting now, see what works. We're going to do ourselves and what are going to go contract. We put into the extension of time for 12 months. Steve and I have got a meeting with the CEO of QRA next week. So I assume that'll be discussed. Yeah, see where all that lies.
The 2018 event, just following discussions I had, people last week appear to have come to practical completion, is that correct?
Yes.
Just just awaiting acquittal, but the practical completion is done, the actual construction.
Yes.
And is it, for each acquittal is for the full amount, we haven't preemptively received any of that money?
Mr Mayor, we do get money in advance, but at the end of the project, we've used up the money in advance and now it's received after we put in a claim.
And that $2.7 million worth of works, does that include the emergent works as well? Is that the total size of the flood damage?
That's the restoration part.
So that's only
there was an emergent prior to that.
Okay, all right. Councillors, questions on goal 3 infrastructure?
Mr Mayor, yesterday we spoke about the Aramac Airport reseal as to why it went to contractors and wasn't done by council.
I think you must have been out of the room, you were on that exact question earlier on because of another MPI and another matter.
Sorry.
I won't answer for it.
That's right, Mr Mayor, it's purely because of the work program we've got on at the moment. Our staff, because we use the same trucks for construction as we do for sealing, we just didn't have the capacity to do it, so we put it out to tender.
So was Councillor Arthur in the room, so he was the one.
He would have an MPI in that, councillor, so he would not have asked that question, councillor.
So he was the one that was asking the question.
Councillor, he would not have asked that question because he has
Yesterday.
an MPI in it.
Yesterday he asked the question. Yesterday?
I'm not,
Yesterday.
I wasn't sure about that, councillor.
Mr Mayor, just
Deputy CEO.
going back to your question on the emergent flood damage.
Yes.
Yes. So we've received $1.7 million.
Already. So there'd only be $1 million in cash outstanding. Or, sorry, it won't be the full amount, never is it?
No, it contains contingency as well, Mr Mayor, so it's a matter of how much of that contingency we use up as well.
All right. What else? No more? Goal 4, they can all come back 4 but stay up if they've got anything in goal 5, which I think is the same crew, isn't it? Or is,
Yes, they're all out.
so they're right to
Leave
stay
them out,
there,
yeah.
can you leave me in there? So any questions for Rick on anything, or Rick, have you got any update for this? Yes, the flood damage going.
Yes. Becky's out, goal 5, but maybe we can just
Is
Oh,
Roger's
sorry,
back?
councillor.
Oh, no, she's doing I think the City of Helen on the clubhouse, so she's out.
Can we go to Mr Mayor?
What we should do is divide their pay amongst the two of you to do the rest of the job for the next 3.5 years. If it wasn't so serious, it'd be hilarious. But yes, what we can do now is receive information from you. We can't talk about everything.
Answer to your question, Mr Mayor, is the slabs down. I went and looked last Thursday or Friday in the rain. The slabs down, the walls are going up. It's coming along, so.
Good. I'll look forward to a field trip of the three of us out to have a look at it at some stage. We can fit in one car. You and I can counsel
Under the
it.
coronavirus rules, Mr Mayor, we wouldn't be allowed.
Oh, well, we'll have to take 2 cars. Jetty design. Have we seen that? Would we mind, maybe, is there a...
Mr Mayor, you'll get to see that at the project update day.
Right.
Next, so next week you'll see the.
I'm going to kick half my council out for that too.
Well, as long as no one.
I hope neither of you like fishing, eh? If either of you are fishermen, you're in serious trouble.
Yeah, they can receive the information as well.
Right. No questions?
The actual construction, machinery-wise, construction is completed, totally completed, the machinery area,
Yes, the dam itself,
The
the
dam.
lake construction is completed. The building is now under construction. The gravel access road and gravel car park is complete. So now we're moving into jetty, boat ramp in the building.
And the jetty is getting constructed free of charge. We provided the materials and local businessmen are doing the construction free of charge.
The jetty.
Yeah. That was an offer made by them to us.
And there's local people are doing the clubhouse construction, aren't they?
That's correct. Tender was awarded to PJ Garland and Co.
Parky Welding Works supplied some material.
The all subcontract. He's I'm going to say a design and constructor. Is that correct?
His alternative is a design and construct.
Yes. Yeah. So we moved to a design and construct, which meant he's the holder. Yeah. Go again.
Is there a fence? Is there a fence going around it?
That's why Councillor Plum's out of the room, because she provided the materials.
For the fence?
No. The oldest won the contract.
The fence is about to start, through you, Mr Mayor.
The fence has.
The Rifle Club was removing the old fence over the weekend and getting some different bits and pieces. So fences, that has been removed or being removed. So the fencing contractor will be starting shortly. He hasn't started already this week.
Only fencing the area just behind the town on this side of Lagoon Creek or the other. Where's the fence going?
It's on the other side.
Just the other side of Lagoon Creek. Yeah, and just around the facility.
Yeah, we're hugging it as close as we can, so minor flood waters don't impact the fence as much. So it was a bit of a difficult one along Lagoon Creek to pick a line. But
Thank you.
All good?
Thank you.
Right. Engineering report.
We haven't got a mover or a second.
Well, who can I guess?
Get Peggy back in.
Can I have Councillor Owen, please?
Thank you.
Councillor Plum, you've been summoned back because I need a quorum to receive the works report.
Well,
Can somebody please move that we receive the works report? Councillor Hanson, seconded Councillor Gleeson. All those in favour, carried 4-0. Right, now everyone else can come back.
Well, Arthur and
Hang on.
Equals have a MPI in the next report.
Just
So,
Councillor
Rogers.
just Councillor Rogers this time, please.
3.6.2. Rick, lead on, please.
Mr Mayor, the Aramac amenities block was put to council, I think in January. The budget of 400,000, the tender price came back at 640 with an alternative of 558. What I've been doing since then is trying to come up with an alternative to fit council's budget. I received, talking to Stuart Bourne from George Bourne Associates, Diane and Tina Shire Council are putting something similar in Baduri at the moment, and they've come up with a modular design. I sent an inquiry to a company that's doing that job, asked for a ballpark figure on our design. We're using a modular type, and it will, just the building itself, I think was around 165,000 plus footings, transport, all the rest of it. So by going to a modular building rather than a constructed building, should bring us back in under budget.
Just a couple of questions on that modular building. So that's not a modular building on the design of Baduri, or it is?
It is.
So that building that's in here, that's quoted as
So-
Baduri amenities drawings.
Based on that similar design, but using our plan as a footprint.
Okay.
I asked them for a price using our plan as a footprint, but in a modular style,
Right.
size of Baduri's.
Okay. So one building with a long veranda, not two buildings with a central breezeway. Is that what you're saying? You've
No, it's still the same as the
Okay.
two with Central Breezeway, or
Right.
something similar to that, yes.
okay. All right, wow, so that's just the building, that's not an installation.
That's right.
Estimation on that?
Through you, Mr Mayor, when we did this original estimate with the built building, there were only about $60,000 worth of paths to join up to the building. So there will be something similar with that. You have to transport it, put it on stumps, connect to power and so forth. But obviously the building itself is a lot cheaper than, a lot better, more inexpensive than a built building.
And the exterior of it, is it still sort of like it's a tin type construction, not a fibro? It's like it's relatively hardy, well wearing?
So if you look at in one of the
Very
attachments,
one. Yep.
yeah, so it shows you what its place is going to look like.
So that is it, that artist impression renders the materials similar?
Yes.
Okay. But if we use our footprint, so Paula, community's awareness of the original drawing, like the one that was proposed before Christmas, community groups consulted on that, or have you had any feedback? No, not yet.
Not as far as I know. We've seen the very first one, but we haven't seen anything right up to that yet.
All right. So Ricky, you're chasing today that we change the construction method, and then you'll provide what's the approval process from here? And I'll load the question so that you know what I'm getting at, so that you can do what you've got to do, and we can take some sort of artist impression to the community.
There's two options, Mr Mayor, as I see it. One is either increase the budget by a considerable amount to build what we had there originally, or go with a different construction method of a modular building that can bring it in under or close to our budget.
So if we were to approve this recommendation today, you would then, that would then instigate what?
Set about a redraw of this, similar to what they did for the Baduri one, and bring that back to council.
Okay.
And if council wishes, goes to the community for consultation.
Is that close enough to what will happen that we could use that as a template to consult with, or are you suggesting there could be material changes because of the construction method that could be misleading to use this?
Possibly, yes.
Okay. Councillor Gleeson.
Through you, Mr Mayor. I just asked the question about male and female, about the position of those in that the positioning of the two buildings with the male and the female facing each other, whether I'm asking the ladies what they think about it as well, whether they'd be better off back to back and the openings on either side rather than just like to look at the detail, you know, you'd like to other people to have your two bobs worth on the plan of, I know it's all very good, husband and wife walking along there and just splitting up and going there, but sometimes that's not necessarily the...
Through you, Mr Mayor, the idea of that was to have a covered walkway through the middle as well. And there's also other areas that aren't male and female that are accessed through there as well, so the laundry and the office for the camp draft arena, access through there as well.
The laundry again is this location here, is that right? That laundry there? Or no, that's the disabled toilet. Yeah. That must be the laundry, right?
Yeah.
So the options are we proceed with the option to date, which we don't have a budget for, or we go for a different style of construction, which could bring it in on budget. Timing of the grant acquittal. Brett?
So this is the Works for Queensland, which we've got due next year.
Oh God, we don't get that long.
But yeah, I think in terms of process, I would be suggesting. So I suppose today's discussion with council is to say which way do you want to go? Do you want to go back to the original plan, build it at the, whatever the cost was?
Yep.
Or do you want to go with this type of building, and if that second option is the option, then we'll go out to tender, get prices and bring them back to council to agree on a price and a design.
Yeah, no, I think we're clear on that, Brad. I just wanted to make sure that we got a chance for the design to be run through the community groups that use it first, before we went too far, because if you went to a tendering process, we sort of accept it, and then if we change the drawings after it's tendered, it comes with a variation then, doesn't it?
I think, the issue with modular is that
The limitations.
it's limited in design, so, once you commit to you've got to go to a company and say, what design, can you do this design? So you're effectively selecting a company before you build a supplier before you.
You can still seek from,
price.
you can still seek from three different suppliers, supply them the same parameters and ask them to provide you, because each of their design options differ on their transportation, delivery methods and installation, their factory, because a lot of these things are processed out of a, like they have standardised spans, don't they, Rick? They're limited by that.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think we can get it close enough, that we can give it to them in the tender. And they can come back with, good adjustments.
So if we sort the tenders and the drawings and the costings, and we took that to the community, because each one of them will be slightly different, you can bet your bottom, unless we design it and say you build this, which will be then cost effective, won't it? If we let them design it, we can then.
I think what we can do is get a design that's reasonably close.
Yeah.
That we're looking to go to tender on, take that to the groups that you want to take it to, make some adjustments with switching some stuff around. I don't think that'll be much of a problem.
Okay.
And as you say, it's done in panels, in spans.
So you're suggesting it might be easier to get a bit of community feedback on that and then use that to guide the tendering rather than go the other way around. Okay, done. I'm happy with the recommendation. Any further questions, councillors?
I still like you to look at all different designs. There's three ways of looking at the breezeway up the middle. The plumbing, the difference in the plumbing costs and everything, if you put all the plumbing up the middle. But anyway, that's further to discussion for the engineers down the track, but I 100% will agree with I'll endorse the engineer's recommendation.
Rogers, Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, I'm happy to go with the officer's endorsement, Mr Mayor.
Can somebody please move it then? Councillor Hanson, Councillor Gleeson. We will look to those in favour. Carried 6-0. No, not that many of us. 5-0. We will look to set up something as promptly as we can in that space with the community groups. Thank you.
Really, Mr Mayor, just become aware of the RecLac being involved in this next report.
3.6.3.
Yeah,
Do you like to?
I think I'll just declare them in lines.
Yeah, we still have a quorum. Oh no, you're gone.
It's just receiving a report.
It doesn't matter. Can we have a resolution from you, Councillor Rogers, that you're declaring an MPI 3.6.3? You'll be leaving the room under section 175. Is that correct?
Yes, because of my scrap metal short business and being supplied.
363. Yeah, we do. I'm just going to ask for a slight adjournment. The officers can join me outside, please. Councillors, this is the same as other resolutions. Quite frankly, it's embarrassing that less than 2 months into a term of a new council, we are in a state of gridlock on key capital works due to real material personal interest
To say that I'm angry is a mild understatement. I really appreciate the work that all of our councillors do, but at this point in time, we are completely hamstrung on this particular issue. I would like the Minister to reflect, thank you Hayley for commencing that. Due to Council unable to maintain a quorum in the chamber, the following agenda item was unable to be formally received. Full stop. Sorry to be pedantic. FOMMAL, sorry. Councillors, I didn't bring everybody back in as we have on other issues with this. Sorry, you don't need to record this, but I know the record will be. And delegate it because we are literally just receiving the report. It would have been very good to discuss this report today, councillors. There are things around this that council, as part of our key responsibilities, will need to decide upon. I'm under the understanding that one of the councillors' MPIs may potentially be changing on this, their status over the next month. If that does happen, I'll be relieved. Otherwise, we will need to give consideration to bring everybody back in again and delegating this to a person or persons. I'm not comfortable on it from a transparency point of view with delegating it below council or level. And I think given the seriousness of the situation and its relevance to ongoing investigations and ongoing development applications, it would be unfair on council to see it delegated to the mayor alone. Not given the current state of council, it wouldn't worry me to have to make the decision personally, but it's very important that we get this right, given the history of this council getting it wrong is both immediate and large in financial reach, inadequacies in approval process, failings to adhere to development application requirements. My list could go on. I'm almost on my soapbox with the two councillors who've done nothing wrong here, but I'm not going to ask either now or at the next stage for this to be delegated. If council can't resolve by way of having a quorum to deal with it, then my recommendation will be that it needs to be passed to the Minister for Local Government, which I believe would put us in very bad stead to have to ask for a minister's involvement on something as substantial as this. So this will be one to watch very closely, but I'm sorry we can't receive the report or discuss it. However, as councillors, you do have the right to request the information and receive it. And given the seriousness of the situation, I would advise that you do that. 364. Who's got an MPI in this?
Just Arthur and Peoples.
We can bring the councillors Rogers and Lum. Thanks, Rick, if you'd like to lead us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is about, starting with a number of shortfalls out of our 61-year-old sewage treatment plant in Buckhorn, and also the same with our plants in Aramac and Muttaburra. We've received a notice from Department of Environment and Science, which is called an environmental evaluation notice, which basically means we have to take certain steps with sewage treatment plants to make them comply. Luckily, we'd already engaged Water and Carbon to do some work for us on the Buckhorn sewage treatment plant, which helped us out with the Department of Environment and Science. Through that work that Water and Carbon have done, they've come up with a range of options for the upgrade of the plant for Buckhall. You'll see in the reports that the cost just for the rectification of the plant itself sits at around 910,000, and then there's a number of options for reuse of the wastewater. I think in the options in your, just trying to bring it up here. I attached a presentation to the Big Tin Can as well. I'll just go to those options. So basically the options are go through wetlands and then continue to discharge into Lagoon Creek, which is not what Department of Environment and Science want. Their main aim is to stop discharge to any watercourse. Another option is to use the land immediately around the sewage treatment plant for some sort of cropping, which then can be contracted out to harvest or whatever it might be. Another option is woodlands type thing where you use that water to grow timber. And the fourth option that we came up with was to basically pump that water over to the to the racetrack, irrigate the racetrack. We can irrigate the centre of the racetrack as well for some sort of fodder, and then also possibly off-take to the golf course as well, and irrigate a couple of fairways of the golf course. I've spoken to the president of the golf club here, they're pretty keen on that option as well. So this is about what council wishes me to push forward as an option.
So councillors, we endorsed this being a shovel-ready project earlier on. There are other potential funding streams and we need to look at them pretty seriously. But some of the costs that are initially involved in this are inbuilt costs to upgrade the STP, and then a lot of the remainder of the cost depends on where and what you want to do with the water.
Yeah.
So if we're piping it for council asset use, we have to find funding for the pipes. If we're providing it to a point of offtake for a private operator, obviously the irrigation equipment from that point of offtake becomes their cost. So there's a variety of scaled costs, Rick, isn't there?
Yes, and through you, Mr Mayor, spending the 910,000 on the plant itself may bring it back into specification, but the thing that Department of Environment and Science have hit us with is possible environmental harm to the creek, which is outside of our licence at the moment. So we can comply with our licence at the moment, but still do environmental harm. So they're coming back at us with that. The good thing about the environmental evaluation notice, as the Department of Environment and Science tells us, is this is the next step which may unlock funding from Treasury to be able to fund what we want to do this. So if we don't get it through the shovel-ready project stuff, then it is possible that it may leverage some funds out of Treasury to make us comply with our environmental obligations.
And another potential funding source, they're out there everywhere. LGGSP is one. Another one is, which is local government grants and subsidy program. Another one is this much touted rural wastewater that's being talked about by LGAQ. So there's options out there. Any questions on this?
I was just going to say, just on the back of what Rick covered, our work with QTC actually put us in contact with Water and Carbon. So that will hopefully is another thing that stands us in good stead if we wanted to progress with this and borrow money to undertake this project. So we've actually, the Mayor and I are lining up a meeting in Brisbane on the 16th of June to have a roundtable discussion with QTC and the Department of Local Government to bring them up to speed with the work we've been doing with QTC, the buy-up program and projects like this. hopefully to get us at the front of the line in terms of being able to borrow money.
Thoughts, questions, mover? Moved Hanson, seconded Rogers. Those in favour, carried 5-0. Oh, surely our MPIs are wrong for that.
No.
Oh, 371.
371, Dan, Mr. Councillor Arthur declared.
Right, so everybody but Councillor Arthur, please. Can I have somebody move that we receive Damien's report? Thank you, Councillor Hanson, seconded. Councillor Rogers, those in favour, and carried. You're in favour of receiving the report, Councillor Peebles?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Which one?
Three.
Sorry, who was the name?
Hanson
And Rogers.
and Rogers. Damien, anything to highlight here?
No, Mr Mayor.
Questions, councillors? There being none. 3.8.1, we've got an MPI on this. So we're right. Can I have somebody move that we receive the report? Thank you, Councillor Plum. Seconded, Councillor Gleeson. In favour? Carried 6-0. Paula, anything to report other than what you've got written?
No.
Thank you. Questions, councillors? I have Councillor Arthur back, please, for 382. Who's leading the conversation here, Paul? You or?
I was just waiting to see what was that?
This is 3.8.2.
Yep.
Yep, so this is a follow-on from the auction, Mr Mayor, where we auctioned, well, we put up for auction 3 properties for non-payment of rates. So legally we can acquire those if we wish. So this resolution is just saying that we will not acquire those properties for non-payment of rates.
You intend to continue action?
Yes, but unfortunately the only thing you can do is find a buyer because
If
they're
we
not going to pay their rates.
That's correct, but now that it's been to auction, if someone was to wish to buy that privately, that is able to happen. Or by tender, I should say.
No, because we don't own them. We would have to acquire them and then put them up for sale. That's the owner.
Well, if there's nothing we can do with them and we don't think we're going to get any rate arrears out of them, why aren't we acquiring them to try and sell them? What am I missing?
Yeah.
Only that we'll continue to own them forever because no one will buy them.
So if we don't take ownership of them, what happens to them? They just...
Continue to accrue rates, is that correct?
So we can, there is the option to. We've got one in Aramac, one in Mother one in Jericho.
Can I just get some advice? Are those properties encumbered? So if they were to be sold privately or pass through an estate, does our rates encumber them? So that the new owner they couldn't transit title without us receiving rates, or does the new owner pick up the liability? What's the encumbrance option there?
No, they have to be sold, they have to pay the rates to sell the property.
Yeah. Okay, so
the new owner would would take ownership of the zero rate, so.
But they wouldn't be, legally can't take ownership until the old rates are paid. Is there an automatic mechanism in place to prevent that?
Well, it goes,
The rates are prorated.
the solicitors do a rate search as part of the process. Well, it's at the buyer's risk, so if the buyer doesn't do a rate search and they acquire the property, then they will inherit the rates.
What happens if there's a transition of title through an estate?
It's still owing.
Does it effectively, so do we have an encumbrance on the property that we can
The
reclaim?
rates are owed on the property, not the person. They're attached to the property, not the owner.
So even if we acquire the land, that doesn't cancel the rate of reroute.
It does, yeah.
It does, and then we can sell, if we own the land, for whatever we choose to sell for.
That's right. So we can acquire them for non-payment and then put them up for sale.
Options, councillor Hanson?
Mr Mayor, my feeling is if we're not getting any rates on them, why shouldn't we own and attempt to get some sort of money for it by reselling it anyway?
I think that's where you were leading as well, councillor Peebles.
Yeah.
Councillor Gleeson, any other thoughts to the contrary? Can someone resolve an amendment to that listed resolution, please?
You, Mr Mayor, I think we have to pay for them, don't we, Brett?
Yes.
We have to pay the reserve amount that we set at the auction, don't we, for each?
Yes, but
We don't just take them over for another.
hopefully that is below what's owing us. Right.
Councillors, given the conflicting advice, can we defer this resolution to the June meeting so that we can ascertain the cost of what acquiring these properties were, because it substantially changes the resolution as presented. I think we need to ascertain the costs before we... Time is not of an essence with this.
I'll move that deferral, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Peebles. Seconded by councillor Gleeson. All in favour, carried 7-0.
3.9.1, Mr Mayor?
Oh, I believe it is. As you're on your feet, it must be councillor Arley. What clockwork for us? Thank you. District Manager Mark Alden, comments?
No, I don't have any comments, but I will just say that the Zoom meeting that I put in there that I attended with Mayor Dillon to do with that Connect for Children, we weren't aware going into that, I don't think, of what it was going to be about, but I do actually think that it is something that would be I personally would like to be part of that team that they would put together to work with the community about that vulnerability of children, because they have picked this area, which I think incorporated Aramac and Barcaldine, as having children in that vulnerable category. It's getting kids ready for school, basically. So it's that early childhood years and having them being ready for prep. So it is it is a good cause. Yeah.
I specifically asked Jenny to reference that in a report. I was under no illusion to what it was about going in there at all, but this area has been identified as underperforming in that, and the Education Department has realised that and is trying to ascertain a lot of information about why and what strategies can be employed to fix it. So certainly be something I'll be working with the CEO to ensure good, strong community involvement with that project while it's underway. There is information in the VT10 about it. I'd suggest it's good reading, and it's actually pretty light on for detail, but it gives you a high level look at what they're doing and what the outcomes could be. It's good stuff. Any more questions for Jenny?
Mr Mayor, I'm going to declare an MPI.
Oh, you got one.
Jenny's working on an operational plan for access to track for trainers, and that would also affect someone who trains or wants to leave. I'll declare an MPI there.
Due to your ownership of a racehorse, thanks, Councillor Peebles. Any more questions?
The bullock dray shed, I heard that there was a really good spot had been found. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Last Friday, Rick and I had to go out to look at the racetrack. I guess I could probably, there was concern raised about damage to the racetrack after a 10 race event on that weekend of on May 16. So Rick and I went out to inspect the track, and in that process we then sort of went to look at locations for the dray shed. Rick then went with the senior work supervisor on Monday. Did you do that Monday after our meetings? Mondays, and measured up a couple of locations. I might ask if Rick would sort of comment about where that location is, but we really need to have a meeting with the family about this before we go forward. But did you want to tell them where you have indicated, or do you want that brought up now? Or
I would, let's work through the options with the family and work up a group, and let's report to a future meeting about that.
Yep, sounds good to me.
I spent probably twice as long as you touring the main street with certain councillors last week trying to identify a good spot, so.
And I have previously done it with the Architects of the Globe as well. I've done that quite some time ago as well, so we've all had a look.
So there's not a spot yet, like it's not decided.
Not officially, no. I'll say. So do you want me to mention about what they're doing with the racetrack?
Well, it's in your report, yep.
So the race meeting was successful, and like I said, there was concern raised by the groundsperson at the track to the damage and in the crucial areas. So that was where it was about 800, 900, from the 800 to the straight, and it's not going to recover. So today we have workers over there actually moving the inside running rail so that it goes out past that damaged part for the next race meeting.
Which would be standard, they move racetrack, that because of the proximity, like at a lot of racetracks, they move them every day.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, ours hasn't been moved before. It's a fixed, reasonably fixed rail. I was trying to source some temporary rail, which is flexible and easily moved. I found that for a reasonable price. Since found that it can't be supplied in time for the next race meeting. So yesterday, late yesterday afternoon, we decided to move the rail out. So the rail's going to come out 4 or 5 metres from sort of 850 around to the 400, which they're into now.
And the track though will be given the chance to recover and move back.
So yeah, what we're looking at going forward is that there's no way in the world grass was going to recover by the next race meeting with the damage. So we'll move the rail out 5 metres, be running on reasonably fresh turf, and then for the next race meeting, which is likely a month later, we'll move it back into true position again, and that'll be and it'll be good enough again by then. So, and we'll just keep doing that, alternating.
And to you, Mr Mayor, I spoke with Warren Williams this morning regarding the moving of those rails. He sent us what Simtrack supplied us in the beginning and about how the guys can move it, so they've got all those plans. But he is hoping to get to me, because we don't know the schedule of these meetings past the 13th of June. And it is only a 6 race event, and most of them after that will be. So he's going to try and give me a schedule of what these meetings might be, so that we at least know in advance, so that we've got forward planning. And it was only that the race club told me when their next meeting is that I actually know that. So, yeah.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the reason that the damage occurred is normally we would have 5 or 6 races with 8 to 10 horses, so we have 40 to 50 horses. We had 10 races with pretty much 10 each race. We had 100 horses go around. That's what's caused the damage.
It's extra wear and tear. Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor. We went the operation plan for access for the track for the trainers. That we discussed it before. Is that all on, are they working with you on that, or is that coming in, with not a lot of cost to a lot of people, or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have spoken with Warren Williams about that, and I'm waiting for him to give me some guidance about the operational plan.
So still abandon the idea of moving the fence though, haven't we? Which where you'd be leading. We're not moving the fence at this point, are we?
No.
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 So they're, at this point in time, they're going around like we suggested, are they? Are they going around the edge of the outside? I'm just,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, sorry, Jenny. I think they're still using the crossings. The thing that will complicate it if we're going to cordon off that outside bit is if we're putting the rail out 5 metres, then
The gate's minor.
we're going to have trouble if they're trotting horses around 20 horses a day on that outside bit. So, we're just sort of balancing that up at the moment on what we're going to do, I suppose. Jenny and I looked at another alternative when we were over there last week. We haven't quite settled that down yet.
And the alternatives that you're talking about are what I've spoken to Warren Williams about. Because there's a couple of options there, but I think that one of the options was the preference of them, so I'm just waiting for him to come back, and then we'll have to get all the trainers in. Namely, we have to go to the trainer who's access to this first.
Can I ask one more question, Mr. Mayor? With the all the works that go at the race course, does the Buckhorn Regional Council get assistance, much assistance from the Queensland government or state or the federal with the racing? Or does it all come out of the Buckhorn Regional Council pocket?
None, to the best of my knowledge. There was a capital works contribution, but that was in terms of construction only. There's no operational support. It's the same as our showgrounds or our football field or whatever. It's just another community asset.
Yeah, Mr. Baird, we don't receive any funding at all.
A lot of dollars get spent over there, eh? There's a man and a tractor, and there's persons allocated to that area 24/7. Yeah. I just thought there might have been some assistance on, but there's not.
From time to time, Queensland Racing releases grants to upgrade equipment that different clubs apply for, and we were unsuccessful with one. We applied for a grant, or the local club did apply for a grant to house the barriers, but I think that was unsuccessful.
Yes, to you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. And they were successful with some funding to put up a fence instead.
Yeah.
Which they haven't done yet. I'm waiting for the second treasurer, I think she is, of the race club. She's been making meetings with me for a little while, because she's got to get it spent.
Further questions?
There being none, we move to item 3.10.1.
I need to remove.
Nicely moved to receive the information report. Councillor Hanson, second Councillor Rogers. All in favour? Carried 5-0. 3.10.1. They may return, I'm sure, that neither of them are about if they'd like to think they are, so surely they can come back inside. I didn't mention his dog. When I looked at that agenda right here, there was no chance. They set me up for the fall and say I don't know if there's any need for the RADF committee to present anything on this. They are recommending council to approve this. Any comment from the RADF committee?
Mr. Mayor.
Can someone from that committee move? Please move. Seconded, moved Councillor Rogers, seconded Councillor Hanson. Oh, I've done it again. Arthur, definitely Arthur. He's not in the room that much. See, I'm confusing your last name. Losing track. Those in favour? Opposed? Recall the vote, Councillor Peebles.
This was in the road, Mr. Mayor, sorry.
I've got a camera right behind you that I can check. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. All in favour? Carried. 7-0. Meeting closed. 3:07 PM. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, officers, for your forbearance with those reports.